I know I made that little intro clip, but it still gets me pumped up every time I hear it. I'm excited, man. It gets me pumped up every single time. Welcome to the Vol Bros. We are two bros who are Vol Bros who are actually bros. I forgot our slogan there for a second. My name is Evan. This is my brother Rustin. And before we start tonight's show, I think it would be extremely appropriate just to express our condolences to Mike Leach's family and friends. We our thoughts and prayers are with them at this time. Horribly tragic, and what a loss for college football as a whole. There was not a better interview in all of college football than Mike Leach. He is by far the most epic interviews and sound bites of any uh, college football coach or college coach period. I mean, uh, Bobby Knight, you could make a case, had more identifiable sound bites, but they weren't as funny as Mike Leach, that's for sure. What a what a cool way to hear all the stories coming out about him now too. This evening we got several things we're going to talk about. Obviously, it's been a big day on Rocky Top. Two major things happen, and then Rustin has a very, I think, unique perspective on one other thing that was announced today that got overshadowed by the two major things. So tonight, first thing, Jalen Hyatt. Rustin, what happened today with Jalen Hyatt? My understanding is he's playing professional football or something now. Is that what's going on? What's happening there?
His draft stock ranges anywhere from middle first round to top of second round. And people don't like to hear it. They're passionate about a big bowl game, but he made the right decision. He cannot risk. So I think Jason Swain said it really, really well. Jalen Hyatt on film has shown a lot of video catching big play touchdowns, catching the deep ball well, but that doesn't stand out to NFL scouts. Any receiver in college can run a deep route and catch a ball. Anybody can catch a ball when they're open. And Josh Heupel did a lot of great scheming to get him a lot of wide open touchdowns.
Probably numero uno example would be the play against Missouri where they line him up in the backfield and hit him behind the offensive line, and then he came out the left side of the line wide open.
Yeah, no NFL scout is impressed by a trick play touchdown. What really probably stands out to them more than anything are when he runs the dig route, catches a ball in traffic. One of the knocks on him forever was he couldn't get open against man bump coverage. And he proved throughout the year that he could get off a guy who was going to be real aggressive on him, run the slant, go run the skinny post, go catch a ball in traffic. Those are the things that really impress NFL scouts because that's what their game is. It is really, really important. Jalen Hyatt's a burner. It is really, really important that when he gets to his pro day that he runs something in the 4.2, 4.3 range, and that will solidify him as a probable first-round pick. He can't risk anything that could jeopardize that, and the Orange Bowl jeopardizes that. He clearly got a draft evaluation that said mid to high first round, and he made the right decision. He needs to stop playing. He needs to get ready for that pro day. The thing that blows my mind, and I see a lot of people talking about it, people freak out because he's not playing, but they always seem to forget that Clemson has a defensive lineman and a linebacker who are both projected to be first-round draft picks, and they've already opted out of the Orange Bowl. So neither one of them are playing. Everybody seems to ignore that fact. It's just the reality of where we are now. I've heard people saying, well, he could make up for it in NIL money. No, he can't.
Not first round money. No chance.
Not even close. Not even third round money. If you look at the last few drafts, guys who are going third round or higher are getting millions.
Yeah.
You can't.
If I remember correctly,
in NIL.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that was actually last year. That was Cade Mays' cutoff. I think it was on Tennessee Prime, the show that they do with Jason Swain and Austin Price. He was talking about. They asked him that question, and he said, "I mean, he's very honest." He said, "We got to check out, what my projection would be in the draft. If NIL deals can match third round money, then yeah, I'd love to come back. But if they can't, then I'll be gone." It was, and I mean, he was very honest, and and you see what happened. He's not back, there. So as far as Jalen's decision, and just so we're all clear, today Jalen Hyatt did announce that he would be preparing for the NFL draft and declaring for the NFL draft. And as a result of that, he would not be playing in the Orange Bowl, but he would still be in Miami for the Orange Bowl. Now, I don't think anybody can argue with his decision from a athletic and financial perspective, because look at Cedric Tillman. Look what happened this year. He came back for the sole purpose of improving his draft stock, and there's a lot of question marks around him, surely in the minds of NFL scouts right now. He played so little this year because of injury. Surely Jalen Hyatt saw that and was like, I don't know. And give us your thoughts. We got people watching right now, so give us your thoughts. What do you think? Should he play or should he not? It's not really our decision, but we can throw in our 2 cents worth. I will say this. What is more intriguing, and Ricky Allison and I were having this discussion today. For those of you who don't know Ricky, he's the gentleman who joined us from the Bahamas in Battle for Atlantis and gave us the inside scoop on Josiah Jordan James' status that day, because he was sitting right behind Josiah's dad and was talking to me. Ricky and I were talking about this today. What is more interesting about Jalen Hyatt opting out of the Orange Bowl was the NIL deal that he made with the Hyatt hotel brand. That becomes more interesting now, and not even so much for this year, but for future years. And here's why I say that. Go ahead. Well, so the question becomes, what are they paying for now? What are they paying Jalen for if he's not even playing in the game? I mean, yeah, it's still name brand recognition. You might be paying, somebody for who would be a first round draft pick, but their hope, certainly their hope was this kid's going to show up in the Orange Bowl and score probably 2 touchdowns and have all that kind of, spotlight on him, and that people will see why, we're sponsoring him, same last name, that kind of stuff. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think that was a really, really smart, really strategic business decision that was made by his NIL representatives, which, oh, by the way, also happened to be a sports agency. And this is the dynamic that people don't seem to understand. When Jalen Hyatt announced today that he was declaring for the NFL draft, 5 minutes later, he was eligible to be signed with an agency. Those agencies, Jalen Hyatt doesn't get paid when he gets drafted. Jalen Hyatt got paid today. Those agencies come up with what they believe his value is going to be in the draft, and they go ahead and front him some of that money. So when they sign an NIL deal with Hyatt, as of this afternoon, that transitioned from an NIL deal to a endorsement deal for Jalen Hyatt, the NFL player. Now that endorsement may change. That endorsement may change after the Orange Bowl, because they tied that awesome deal in where every single player got a room for their family to come to the game. Right. So to avoid any issues there, they might wait and announce the endorsement switch after the Orange Bowl. But that was a very strategic decision made by his marketing department of his agency, his sports agency, to go ahead and solidify him, use the Orange Bowl as the opportunity, as the open door, but solidify him as his very first endorsement deal being with Hyatt Hotels. That was an incredibly intelligent move.
All right. I think that's a great point. Well, let me ask you this then. And Laura just gave us a good comment, and I'm going to hang on to that comment just for a second, because that actually leads into one of my next points. Does this, because let's be honest, this is new territory for everybody in college football. Mm-hmm. The whole NIL deals, bowl season combined with NIL deals. Does this, with Jalen Hyatt now, do you think this will impact future NIL deals around bowl season. In that, do you think organizations who sign an NIL deal with a kid will have a clause in that contract that says they have to play in this bowl game or something like that for exposure? Do you think that'll happen?
No, because I think it'll be deals similar to the one we just witnessed. I think it'll be organizations who are already looking at high profile players that they believe could end up being really good NFL guys. And it'll be brokered in such a way that if they play in the game, great, that's wonderful. But let's be real, Hyatt hotels couldn't care less if Jalen Hyatt plays in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
just don't. I mean, they've got more money than they know what to do with. They would much rather have Jalen Hyatt, 5-time Pro Bowler, who is the face of Hyatt hotels. That would be really positive for them. Because, I mean, here's the other thing. NFL viewership dwarfs college viewership. NFL ratings are significantly higher than college TV ratings, which sounds crazy because college TV ratings are through the roof, but NFL ratings destroy college ratings.
Well, and part of that is due to the fact that, we're both from the Southeast and college football is king in the Southeast.
Yeah.
Other parts of the country, the NFL would take precedence in most people's minds over the college football. But I mean, we're an SEC country. It just means more.
Also, and you might have been about to get to this, but to Laura's comment, if this was a playoff game, he absolutely plays.
Absolutely, yeah.
The two kids that are opting out for Clemson, they're first rounders. If this was a playoff game, they absolutely play. But it's not. And it's, I mean, people hate this because old school people who, got up on New Year's Day and watched bowl games all day long and they all mattered, they just don't anymore. If it's not the college playoff, the rest of the bowl season is just a fun extra game we get to watch, kind of see what teams have next year. But if it's not the college football playoffs, honestly, the game doesn't matter.
And that's sad that we're in that position in college football, but that is the position we're in. So for those who are listening to the audio podcast and not watching this by the way, we're live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube right now. And so we love it when people interact with us. Thank you so much, Laura, for interacting with us. But for those who can't see Laura's comment, because you might be listening to this on playback on an audio podcast, Laura said, I don't blame him for going, but I hate it that this is now the norm for college football players. And I agree. I totally agree with that. If we were in one of the playoff games for the national championship, like Ohio State is dealing with, it greatly takes away from the excitement. And you're exactly right. If that were the case, it would take away from it. I'm gonna present another idea here about this, because I think this was my last point about Jalen Hyatt's decision today. For people who are upset with the expanded college football playoff starting in 2024, for people who are upset about that, and there are so many people on both sides of the fence. Some people are saying it's going to make the regular season pointless. No, it's not. You still have to go at least 10-2 to get into the playoff. That's not changing. I mean, think about this year. I would venture to propose that there are a couple SEC teams, at least two, that are 10-2 that people would probably wager that they were better than a couple of the college football playoff teams, because it's a tougher league. But if people are upset with an expanded playoff, the playoff is a solution to this problem. The expanded playoff is the remedy to people sitting out important bowl games now, because all of a sudden those bowl games matter big time, because it is for a national championship. So I totally agree with Laura. It would be very upsetting if this were for a playoff game or something like that. But like you said, Rustin, I don't think that we would be having this discussion if it were for a playoff game, because I think you'd be there. I think that folks who want more meaningful postseason football games, and they don't want to see people opting out of postseason college football games, the expanded playoff is what's going to cause that. All of a sudden, I mean, you think about the games other than the 4 playoff games. You've got, Utah and well, I just totally blanked. Utah and I can't even think who they're playing in the in the is it not
Penn
Purdue?
State.
Penn State, yeah. I didn't start with a P. There you go. So you got games like that. Well, all of a sudden, that all these other games, they matter so much more. You know, think about Clemson, like Rustin was just saying. Somebody earlier today said, so is either Orange team going to have enough players to field a team at the Orange Bowl, because so many people are opting out. Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, both of them would be playing in this game if it were in the expanded college football playoff. So I personally am excited about the expanded playoff because I think we're going to get a better representation of the best teams in college football, because there's going to be more. I know people are going to be like, well, you're biased towards the SEC. I get that. I understand that. But numbers don't lie. Look back over the last 11 or 12 years, how many times the SEC has won the national championship. Look back over the last 11 or 12 years and how many more players are in the NFL from the SEC than every other conference. If you, I think it was Peter Burns tweeted out, if you look at wins in the college football playoff, Alabama has 9 of the SEC's 14 wins. If you take the Big 10, the Pac-12, and I think he said the Big 12, and combine all of their wins, it was
all the other Power 5 conferences.
Yeah.
They're combined 3 and 5.
Yeah, it's still less than if you take Alabama out of the situation. So, I mean, facts are facts. Numbers don't lie. We're going to see a true representation of really who the best team is in college football. And don't be shocked if each year there's at least 2, if not 3, SEC teams in the Final Four every year.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that for the future of college football, because all of a sudden there's not just 2 ball games and then a championship that matter anymore. Oh no, there's a whole smorgasbord of bowl games that all of a sudden take on whole new meaning. So thank you so much, Laura, for asking that question, because that was a fantastic point. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
I think Cedric Tillman's a fantastic example of why people should opt out. If Cedric doesn't get healthy and run a really good 40 time at the pro day, it will literally cost him millions.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he is right now teetering on 2nd to 4th round. If he can run a really good 40 time at the pro day, that will solidify him in the 2nd, maybe high 3rd round. If he doesn't, and they still have questions that maybe he's not fully healed, or they start questioning, is he ever really going to fully heal? He will drop significantly in the draft.
Well, and let's be honest, a really good 40 time for Cedric is very different than a really good 40 time for Jalen Hyatt and a bunch of other receivers in this draft.
Right.
Cedric Tillman's, allure to college football or to NFL teams is his size and his ability to make catches in difficult, spaces and stuff, like his strength. Right. I mean, he just bullies cornerbacks, and that's his allure. And so he's never been a burner.
Right. But he still needs to run an equivalent time, like a comparable receiver for him is AJ Brown. Like, he needs to run a comparable time to somebody like an AJ Brown, so that they can feel comfortable with, okay, yeah, we've got an opportunity to draft the next AJ Brown. If he runs a step or 2 slower, they're going to immediately question that foot. They're going to question the surgery, and he's going to plummet on draft boards.
And by no means am I saying that Cedric's slow, because, I mean, my goodness, we've seen him two steps ahead of DBs his whole career, or the last 2 years. But he's not as fast as Jalen. Well, nobody is.
No.
But I mean, Jalen, yeah. So, I mean, like Jalen's been demonstrating that since, I mean, think about his freshman year, the touchdown pass he caught in Neyland against Alabama from Jarrett Garantano. And he ran straight past Patrick Surtain Jr., who was the number 9 pick overall in the NFL draft. He just went straight past him, burned him. Cedric probably wouldn't do that, but he would get position on him and make the catch anyway. And so
Cedric, again, going back to what we said about Jalen at the beginning, Cedric can put routes and tough catches in traffic on film, probably more so than most anybody in the draft. So people watch that and they go, okay, there's the big body physical guy that we want at the X or the Z in the NFL. But has he lost something? Like, we need to see that he's fully healthy.
Right. And can he stay healthy? Because he tried coming back this year and then missed the last 2 or 3 games again.
Yeah. Right now, he's got to be a huge question mark to a lot of NFL franchises because he has not been able to prove yet that he's gotten back healthy.
Right. Before we go on to our next thing, we would absolutely love it if you would share our podcast with your buddies. Text a buddy, like Danny White said, and text them a link to our podcast. This is fun to talk about. This is a lot of fun. So we appreciate you liking this video. That's a huge help. Thank you so much. Subscribe, plenty of ways to find us. Look, I'll even put a little fancy thing at the bottom of the screen. Hey, there you go. We're at the Vol Bros on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. So our next thing today, a certain high school commit happened today. Kind of a big deal. So, Rustin, who committed today and what position do they play and why is that important?
Well, it's important for a lot of reasons, but this afternoon, the Vols pulled a massive coup. Aryan Carter, the number 13 linebacker nationally, according to 247, had narrowed it down to Tennessee, Alabama, and Ohio State.
Interesting. So those were the 3 hats on the table, correct? Yep. Tennessee, Alabama.
Not only were those the 3 hats on the table, 2 weeks ago, everybody thought he was going to Alabama. And Josh Heupel and Rodney Garner and Tim Banks made several in-home visits, found opportunities to get in front of that kid. A lot of people, there's a question. A lot of people think he's the number 1 player in Tennessee. Others think he's number 2. Regardless of the recruiting service, he's in the top 2 in the state of Tennessee. He's the number 13 linebacker nationally. A lot of people make comparisons to Keo Spikes.
That's not too bad, is it?
Yeah. And not from a physical perspective, but from a immediate playing time perspective. Like, they think this kid is SEC ready right now. And they fully expect, they said whatever team he ended up with, he was going to compete for an immediate starting job as a true freshman. I mean, this kid is a big time player. And as of 2 weeks ago, everybody thought he was going to Alabama. And Josh Heupel pulled off a massive coup. And this afternoon, in front of his entire high school, Smyrna High School, he messed with them a little bit. He started to put on the Tennessee hat, tossed it to the side, started to reach for the Ohio State hat, didn't really pick it up, picked up the Alabama hat, acted like he was going to put it on, then set it back down, reached under the table and pulled out the Tennessee hat, put it on. But that was a massive, massive recruiting win for Josh Heupel.
So probably the most interesting part of that story was Austin Price today was talking about one of Alabama's assistant coaches showed up at their high school today, right before the ceremony. And Aryan Carter asked the officials at the school to just ask the gentleman to stay outside and not come in the gym.
But I mean, there was a lot of people who, even as of this morning, really thought he was not going to flip from Alabama and he was going to Alabama. It was a pretty impressive move by Josh Heupel to turn that kid.
So obviously, position of need anywhere on the defense, especially a linebacker in secondary. You gotta have some help in this class, and they're getting it. Man, oh man, are they getting it? I think 16 of their recruits. There's 23 in the class right now, and 16 of them are on the defensive side of the ball.
And
So
now so Arion is technically a 4-star, but he is like right on the lip of being a 5-star. And so, when the new rankings come out, I fully expect, when you're ranked as highly as he is, and you've got Alabama, Ohio State saying this kid can start for us next year, that 5-star is coming. So that will be 3 of the defensive signees are 5-stars.
when Alabama's assistant coach is so concerned that you're not going to pick up that hat, and he shows up to the ceremony before it starts, trying to get your attention and everything, that speaks volumes. And my understanding, I saw this on Twitter. Now, I hate to shock everybody who's listening right now, but sometimes the things we read on Twitter aren't true, and I know that's shocking for everybody, but it's the truth. Sometimes that falsehood emerges on Twitter. Well, I read today that he's actually moving in Knoxville tomorrow and starting practice with the team tomorrow, and he's going to be an early enrollee. That's huge. I mean, like that is he. I mean, no wonder he asked the Alabama coach to stay outside, because he's like, "There's no way I'm going to be in Knoxville tomorrow."
It's either 16 or 17 of their 23 signees are early enrollees, and that is enormous.
The most Butch ever pulled, Butch Jones, was 14, and we were all like, "Man, that's incredible!" And they lined them up, at the
let's go
basketball game
back
at half court.
Yeah, and let's go back. That group of 14, that was the group that actually kind of put Butch on the map and turned the whole state. That was the Derek Barnett, Josh Dobbs. That was that group.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to be said for a really large group of early enrollees.
Absolutely. Especially if they're already practicing with the team, getting bowl practices in too, man. That can't hurt, that's for sure. Well, so let's real quick, since we've mentioned all these people who are sitting out, and as we've mentioned, there are people at Clemson also sitting out the Orange Bowl. Tennessee's going to look a little bit different. I do not think the defensive side of the ball is going to look too different. You probably won't see Byron Young, but you probably will see everybody else, because they need it, because they need to demonstrate to NFL scouts that they are draftable and that kind of stuff. The offensive side of the ball, particularly at wide receiver, is going to look very different, but not in the backfield. And Rustin, who is it? I'm sorry, help me remember. Which team led all of college football in rushing touchdowns this year? Who was that?
It was Tennessee by a pretty wide margin.
Oh, that's right. So the team that led the country in rushing touchdowns, they're going to have everybody back there playing.
Yeah.
So that is going to be interesting. What do you think? What's the offense going to look like in the Orange Bowl?
Well, let me go back to Byron Young. I actually think you might see Byron Young because he's already said he's going to play in the Senior Bowl.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah,
that would put up major red flags. Yeah, that would put up major red flags for pro scouts if he skipped the bowl game and then played in the Senior Bowl. They would question his character if he did that. So I think you actually will see Byron Young. Now, they may put him on a pitch count, and he may have limited snaps, or they may only use him in third and long situations to get to the quarterback and show off his ability to be a rusher. Because again, and people hate this when you say it, but because it is the Orange Bowl and it's a big deal, but it doesn't really matter. And so,
sadly, that's true. Yeah.
It's an opportunity to get some of those younger guys that you're really taking a hard look at for next year. It's an opportunity to get them some meaningful snaps and get to see them against a Power 5 opponent who's a good opponent, and really know, can I trust this guy next year? So I think we'll see a lot on the defensive line. I think we'll see a lot of Byron Eason. I think he's one that they're kind of questioning. What do we have here? On offense, I think I tell you the most interesting thing for me on offense, we know we've got Brew, we know we've got Squirrel, we know we've got Ramel Keaton. Those are going to be the 3 starters at receiver.
Agreed.
But Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb have not played in 4 games yet. So technically, they both can play significant snaps in the bowl game and still redshirt. So I would love to see. I'm curious to see how much of those two guys we see. I think we'll see Walker Merrill get significant snaps because they're wondering,
to say.
It's the guy we can trust next year. It's going to be fascinating. This is just kind of my crazy thought process, but I love D. Williams. He is an awful cornerback. He is buried so deep on the defensive back depth chart. He is never going to see the field on defense. And that dude is as shifty as Cordero Patterson was. I would love to see them look at him and go, hey, what do you think about playing receiver? And move him over to that side of the ball and
it's the Evan Berry discussion.
Yeah, and throw a couple of bubble screens to him, and let's just see what that Joker can go do. I would love to see that because he's never going to see the field on defense. He is a terrible defensive back.
Well, and I mean, he must be the fact that walk-ons were playing ahead of him at one point this year.
Yeah, multiple walk-ons.
So you look at him in the return game, and it's the same thing people were saying about Evan Berry. You put the ball in his hands, he's electrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then why not put the ball in his hands? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I wouldn't be shocked if they moved him over. Even if you're running jet sweeps with him or something, you're putting the ball in his hands.
It's Cordero Patterson. Create all the exact same system plays for one guy, like Jim Chaney used to run for CP. I mean, look what the Falcons
coach in Tennessee history right there.
Yeah. Look what the Falcons did with Cordero Patterson. They were like, this dude is a freak. They took him, moved him to tailback. They were giving him 10 to 15 carries a game, throwing him the ball out of the backfield, lining him up in the slot. I mean, they were getting him 20 to 25 touches a night. It's the same concept.
It'll be a fun game to watch as Tennessee fans, just to see who's on the field and how they use them. It's going to be a 2023 preview is basically what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
It'll also probably tell us which positions we're really going to go after in the portal. It'll solidify that.
That's fair. Next to last question. Our basket Vols. They defensive win, I think, is a fair assessment this past weekend against Maryland. But talk about a marquee game. They got Arizona this weekend. I think it's Saturday night at 10:30 Eastern.
Yeah, it's on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's a late game. So what do you think about the win against Maryland over the Terps, and what do you think about this weekend?
I thought the win over Maryland was an exceptional win. And people were a little angry about, we doubled them in the first half. It's 34-17 at halftime. We held a Maryland team that was averaging 78 points a game to 12% shooting in the first half. Okay, that doesn't happen
without two very important players.
Right. So, and then people got mad that Maryland came back in the second half. I'm like, what do you want? They're the number 13 team in America. They might be better than that.
They're going to score. Like, that's the thing.
they averaged 78 points a game. They weren't going to be held under 40. That just wasn't going to happen. The fact that we held them to 58, that's 20 points under their average. It's the number 13 team in America, and we held them to 20 points under their average without Jonas Adu and Josiah Jordan James. If you had told anybody before that game, hey, the Vols aren't going to have Josiah tonight, and they aren't going to have Jonas, and they aren't going to know that Jonas can't play until right before the game. And so real fast in the locker room, they're going to have to get Toby Awaka ready to go because he's literally the only remaining post player on the bench. And we're going to hold Maryland 20 points under their average.
And win.
Who wouldn't have said, I'll take that?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
that's like this year in football. I mean, if you had told somebody, so you're going to go 10-2, and it's going to be a very, very hotly debated on if you should have been in the college football playoff. You'd be like, yes, I will take that.
Yeah.
Please sign me up for that.
But
And
I think the way Tennessee won was really impressive. The final 3 minutes, those guys who were on the court who had gutted out and really kind of played Iron Man ball for most of the game. I mean, Santiago Vescovi was playing injured the whole time. It was obvious, and he was fighting through it. With about 2 minutes left, he dove on the floor for a loose ball and re-injured his shoulder again. Clearly couldn't even pick his arm up, but he stayed in the game. And Rick Barnes was smart enough to draw up an inbounds play to get Zakai Ziegler the ball instead of Santiago because they knew they were going to foul. And Santi couldn't shoot the ball, but Santi he's a fighter, and he wanted to defend and he wanted to stay out there, so he stayed on the court and played through injury. Part of that was probably knowing that there's really not anybody left on the bench, so he kind of had to. But guys like Jemai Meshack stepped up and gave them huge minutes.
he's so athletic.
Toby Awaka hasn't hardly
Analysis.
played. Yeah. Toby Awaka hasn't hardly played all year and steps in and gets him 7 points and 8 rebounds and was an absolute force at times. It was just the way they won just spoke volumes to the toughness of this team. And last year's team, I'm not sure would have won that game. This team has a street fighter mentality about it that when Maryland came charging back in the second half, they weathered it and they pushed through it, and they found a way to win in the end. And I'm not sure last year's team would have done that.
Well, so this weekend, major matchup, top 10 matchup, isn't that right? That's what I thought. Major matchup. Arizona's getting back to the Arizona of the 90s. They're not there yet, but they're getting back to that. Had an excellent season last season. Obviously having top 10 team in the country right now, so obviously having a great season so far this year. Major road test for the Vols. Major test. Late night test for the Vols. So hopefully we'll come out on the win. This, I think, if we say right now it's going to be ugly, but you're going to win, everybody be like, all right, sounds good. So if it's ugly and we still win, it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good thing. W's matter, just like in football. If you get a W, it's a win no matter what.
Even I hate to almost say this out loud, but even if you just keep it close,
sure.
I honestly think that road win over Maryland, even though it was technically neutral site, it wasn't really neutral site. It was way closer to Maryland's campus. The whole gym was Maryland fans. That win over Maryland, shorthanded on national television, holding the number 13 team in America to 20 points below their average. I think that actually, if they can just keep this one close Saturday, that Maryland win will go a lot further in March than this one will. If they can somehow find a way to get healthy and they can go out there and find a way to get a win, we might get a number 1 seed out of that if we just kind of hold suit through the rest of the conference. But it's going to be hard to go out there in a late night game on the West Coast,
very late night game.
Very banged up. We got a lot of injuries, and they're one of the highest scoring teams in America. So even if you play fantastic defense, let's say you hold them to 60 to 65, I'm not sure we're healthy enough to score 60.
Yeah, it's definitely a strength on strength situation. Somebody tweeted about, Arizona's offense ranks whatever so high in the country. Tennessee's defense is like equally as high.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona's defense is like way low. Tennessee's defense or offense matches that. So it's a strength on strength matchup for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of rankings people have us the number 1 defense in America now.
Well, the last thing that I like for us to talk about that you mentioned earlier, and you brought this up right before we came on, I've titled this Under the Radar Recruiting Win. And for those of you who are still watching, you are awesome, and you deserve a whole hillside of heavenly scented marigolds and daffodils. That's a line from Everybody Loves Raymond. But we so appreciate all of you who are watching. That is so awesome. Thank you for interacting with us. Laura, you are awesome. Thank you for interacting with us. That is awesome. I think this is the most intriguing part of the whole show right here.
Yep.
What is the under the radar recruiting win that Tennessee had today? And we're not talking about Aryan Carter. Who are we talking about?
Grant Frerking.
That's his name for real. For those, he's a wide receiver at Tennessee right now.
He's number 0. Senior.
So what happened today?
Well, I think we need to take a step backwards because most people probably don't know Grant Frerking's story. Grant Frerking went to Wesleyan Academy in Johns Creek, Georgia, right outside Atlanta. While he was in high school, he started a landscaping company. If you've ever been around Atlanta, there is no mulch. Everybody uses pine straw. There's pine straw everywhere. Grant
Rustin used to live outside of Atlanta, just so you know.
Oh yeah, a whole yard was nothing but pine straw. And so Grant turned his landscaping company into a pine straw company called Metro Straw. This is while he's a high school student. By the time he got to UT, he had built that business to a 7-figure-a-year business. He was making over $1 million in his dorm room at UT. When NIL became a thing, Grant had gone through all this entrepreneurial training. He was making more than all the professors on campus, so they kind of had to let him do whatever he wanted to do. And so when NIL came along, he was the person that everybody was going to around the UT campus trying to learn how to do NIL well, because he had already marketed a multi-million-dollar company as a 22-year-old, 21-year-old.
And just to interject one thing here, kudos to the University of Tennessee. They were so prepared for the advent of NIL. Yeah. They were the first university in the country that is literally the day NIL partnerships went into effect and became legal. They announced that they had a program set up to where all of their student athletes could major in something and also receive a minor in entrepreneurship. That was genius by them. That was a genius move.
And Grant played a major role in that. He was the student advisor that was involved in all of those planning concepts. So when NIL hit, Grant became the guy in college athletics. Other athletes were calling him, asking, how do I do this? What should I be thinking? Well, today, On3 Sports announced that the day after the Orange Bowl, Grant Frerking is their new Director of Athlete Network Development. Now, that's a huge title. And what it really means is Grant is the guy. On3 is a multi-million-dollar, $100 million company that spans the entire country. Grant is going to be the guy teaching every high-profile athlete, high school athlete in America, how they should be thinking about NIL and how to create their NIL valuation through On3. So what did I just say? Number 0 at the Orange Bowl, the day after the Orange Bowl, is going to walk into an office at On3 Sports and have immediate contact with every high-profile high schooler in America. No matter how many,
advantageous.
Yeah. And right now, one of the top NIL collectives in America is Spire Sports at UT. Who Grant is also
very much involved.
Who Grant is also extremely connected to. So when you talk recruiting win,
well, just to make a point about that, how involved Grant is. Obviously, VolQuest is Tennessee's On3 network, affiliate. And if you recall, if you go back to the night of the Alabama victory, go scroll through Austin Price's tweets. one of his tweets is he finds Grant on the field and asks him who the leader in college sports is, and Grant, holding a cigar in one hand and his helmet in the other hand, surrounded by students, is yelling, "On three, baby!" You know, like like promoting On Three. From this isn't like a, oh, well, look what happened kind of thing. They've been in talks, I'm sure, for quite a while because they respect Grant's NIL mind and his entrepreneurial mind. And like Rustin said earlier, people have been coming to him. Other players have been coming to him. He's been the forerunner in NIL deals, and he never hardly ever steps on the field.
Not just at UT, from schools all over the country. He's been advising guys at Alabama, Auburn, LSU. I mean, the whole country comes to him.
And so, like Rustin said, you know, surely there will be contracts involved with, you know, he can't openly recruit for the University of Tennessee and stuff like that. But if he's talking to some high school kid and the kid's asking him straight up, like, what would you do if, you know, in this situation? How would you do this? He can't remove the memories that he has of things that Spire Sports did and the Spire group, you know, with Tennessee's collective. Those are direct, you know, experiences and contacts that he has in mind. And he's like, I mean, surely there will be times he's like, well, you know, Spire did it this way. And he could say what they did well and that kind of thing. Like that, those things will come to his mind. He can't just remove those from his memory.
Well, and so let me take that a step further. I mean, one of his roles at On Three is he's helping high school kids figure out what their valuation is.
Yes.
What better way to find out their valuation than to call Spire Sports and go, what do you value this kid at?
Yep. And On Three was the first major recruiting network to introduce the NIL value of a player.
Yep.
And one of the first people that was tweeting about it and talking about it was Grant. Like he was promoting it all the way. I saw him do that near the beginning of this season.
Yep.
So he was already working with On Three back then. I mean, this has been in the works for a while now. He was already working with them back then, talking about NIL valuations and stuff like that. He is going to, I mean, kudos to him, first of all, that he has this mind to see a potential opportunity and attack it and, man, just knock it out of the park. But he is going to be extremely influential in the valuations of different players. Yeah. So he's going to be in close contact with them. This is certainly an under the radar recruiting win for the University of Tennessee.
This is the kind of thing that, you know, it was announced this afternoon. On Three made a big deal out of it. It didn't really get a whole lot of national publicity. So
because
it kind of
major announcements like Aryan Carter were happening.
Right. So it just kind of slipped through. But this is the kind of thing, honestly, if this goes the way it potentially could, this is the kind of thing that for the next 3 to 5 years, Tennessee benefits from significantly and might be a program changing event that people 5 years from now look back at and point to and go, if we hadn't had Grant sitting over there, I'm not sure we would have been able to do all this. It's a much bigger deal than people realize.
And even if he's not, you know, walking into a school with a Tennessee shirt on and stuff, which I'm sure he can't do that. But even if, you know, he's walking in there, the player's going to ask him, where'd you go to school? You know what I'm saying? And so that just him being able to say University of Tennessee, they're going to think, man, well, will I be as successful as this guy when I come out of school? You know, if I don't get in the NFL or something like that, this is a win for the University of Tennessee and Grant for sure. This is a huge deal. So, and now that some high school associations like ours right here in Tennessee just introduced NIL deals are legal now for high school athletes. And that's a whole new ball game for high school coaches, high school athletic departments. And Grant can be an asset to those people and develop relationships with high school athletic directors and high school coaches. He can be an invaluable asset to them too. And don't you think On Three would love that? Because their primary consumer network is high school athletics. And if they have a person who is going into these schools and helping these schools with their athletes, this is a super win. This is a super win. And
Yep.
it won't get the national pub, but it's a big deal.
Yeah. I think what you're going to see is Tennessee as a state, Tennessee high school is going to be way ahead of a lot of the rest of the country in NIL because of Spire Sports, because of the model they've already seen created at UT, and because of Grant's new role. I think you're going to see, and it's a pro and a con. Pandora's box is fully open now.
Oh, yeah.
I understand why the TSSAA did it. Their hands were tied. It was a lawsuit waiting to happen if they didn't, just like it has been in several other states. But there's no way. I mean, the running joke in Tennessee is the TSSAA struggles to police anything. So now we're talking about trying to police NIL deals. That's not happening.
Well, and to the point that you just made about Spire, just so we're all clear, Spire is the NIL collective affiliated with the University of Tennessee. From the get-go, they were aggressive in how they approached the situation as far as NIL sponsorships, period, across the board. They were aggressive in how they approached it. They were wise in how they approached it. And I think you could probably ask tons of people nationally what university has the best collective, and they're going to say Spire. Like that. Yeah. It is a standard by which other collectives can look at and say that's how it should be done.
There's a lot.
They've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, there's a lot of collectives in the SEC that just straight copied what Spire was doing because they were so far ahead of them. It was easy to look at their model and go, okay, we're going to do that. And
think about right now with On3, they have a podcast every single week called oh goodness, what is it? It's a volunteer. Well, the name eludes me right now.
Volunteer
Confidential,
Club.
Volunteer Confidential. That's what it is, and it's sponsored by the Volunteer Club, which is Spire. That's their group. Yep. And so, I mean, they even like Austin Price will on air when they're recording, because they have different players from Tennessee on the show. Like one of the most fascinating ones was Brew McCoy when they had him on there. And it's called Volunteer Confidential, and it's Austin Price and one or two players sitting in a room talking. And
but even that is an NIL deal because it's a pay per subscription. Yep. So the players are on there being interviewed and getting one-on-ones, but the players are actually making money off of it.
Yep. And Austin Price mentions Spire in the as he's introducing the show, that it's sponsored by Spire. So this is a big deal. And it could pay a lot of really positive benefits for Tennessee down the line, because Grant's he's a smart kid, and he's going to be able to do this effectively. And kudos to him, man. Really, really happy for him that people noticed his ability, his entrepreneurial mind, and it's paying off for him. Kudos to him for that.
It was hard to argue with when he was making more than every professor on campus.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Certainly, please share this with all your text a buddy, man. Text a buddy. Please let them know we have fun doing this. We do this because it's fun. Hey, check out thevolbros.com. We got a really cool new TriStar, state emblem on there. I don't think I have a photo of it. No, I don't. We also have, honorary bro shirt. We got to hand out one of those today, actually, to Ricky. He joined us. And so anybody who comes on our show as a guest, we always give them an honorary bro or honorary sis shirt. We haven't had any sisses yet, but we're going to. We know two people here locally. They're good friends of ours who are both in probably the Southland marching band. So we're going to have them on sometime. But thank you all so much. Love it if you'd subscribe. That'd be amazing. And follow us on all the socials, man. We're putting stuff out all the time. So we hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Go Vols Saturday night, big time game against Arizona. And we look forward to seeing everybody probably next Thursday is when we'll do our next live show. So we hope to see you then.